Hello and welcome to my enemy 2D tutorial for Godot. I'm going to start off by creating the enemy itself, so I'm going to go up here, create a new scene, go other node, and I am going to create a character body 2D. We obviously need a collision shape for it, so I'm going to create a collision shape. And that collision shape is going to be a rectangle. We are going to create a sprite for it as well, so put sprite 2D. That sprite 2D is going to be the rectangle here. Then I'm going to try and fit him inside the box like we did with the player. So now we have the enemy player right here. What I'm now going to do is create an area 2D. This makes it so this will be the a detection area for the player. So whenever they're inside this area 2D, it will allow the player to, it will make the enemy follow the player. We're then going to add in a collision shape as a child of this area 2D, and I'm going to make a circle. I'll then scale up a little bit, and they're going to save this scene as enemy. There we go, and then we can then add it into this scene by dragging the enemy from the file system down the bottom left into the scene. And you see it's a bit small. You can also rename it up here by double clicking. So I'm going to rename it enemy, enemy, and then I'm going to scale it up a bit. There we go. And then also going to move the enemy so it's out of the player's out the detection radius, so then we can actually see it in action working. Move the player over there. Cool. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go onto the enemy and I'm going to add a script to the character body 2D with no template on it, just create. So first what we need to player speed, so I'm going to export a variable called speed, and it will be equal to 25. Or you can make it equal whatever we want, but the bigger the number that's here, the slower the player will be. So I'm then we need a variable to know if the enemy should be chasing or not, so I'm going to put a variable player chase, and I'm going to equal it to false. For now, this will be a regular variable, don't export this one, because we don't need to see this one or edit it at all. I'm then going to make another variable for the actual player itself, and for now it's going to equal null, which basically means like nothing. Like there's no, it won't equal any object or value, it's just some kind of game object will go here. So what we want to do first is we want to get a function, and we want the physics positive delta function, and we then want to create an if statement inside, and it's going to be if player chase with the colon at the end. So if player chase, so if player chase is true, then the position, we want to increase the position of the player, or sorry, not the player, of the enemy. We want it to be towards the player's position, so player position minus position, and then we want that to be based on the speed, so I'm going to put divide by speed. So now what we want to do is we want to know whether the player is inside the detection area of the enemy. So to do that, what we can do is we can go to the node, we can click on detection area, and it should bring up all these different functions here. These are all different functions that that this detection area has access to within Godot. So what we want is we want body, this one called bodied enter body node 2D. If you double click it and then make sure it's clicked on character body 2D and then click connect. And then we also want body exited, which is right below body entered. We want that. We also want this function too. And then again make sure character body 2D selected and then click connect. You can then delete what's already in them, the pass function, and what we want to do is we want player underneath body entered in the actual script, we want player to equal the player itself. So what we can do is we can make it equal body for now. That's probably the best way to do it, as they're technically not in the same scene. We're scripting the enemy from the enemy subscene, and body basically means whatever enters the zone. We can also set the area 2D to pick up, or set it on different levels or layers, so it'll only pick up the player. So this won't be a future problem for other enemies colliding and them following each other and whatever else could happen. So now what we also want to do is we want player chase function to be true as the player has entered the area, and then what we want to do down here is we want player to equal null again because it's exited the area, and we want player chase to equal false, as we don't want the enemy to continue following the player. Now it's not in its area of effect, basically. So we can save this, delete a few random lines up here, and I think as well, so it just looks a bit neater. Alright, so save. We go to the main scene, and if I go on the enemy here and go to the inspector, oh no, it needs to be in the enemy scene, sorry. And the detection area, there should be something down here called collision. If you click on collision and open it, we want to set the collision layer and mask both to 2. So anything on layer 2 is what the enemy will interact with, or will be interacted with. So then if I go to the player character, and I go to the collision layer, and I set that to the second layer as well as the first, and then leave the mask how it is. And if I save both these scenes, it should be done. If I click play scene, if I move up to the player, it should start following the enemy. It should start following the player around. Obviously you can change the speed of the enemy in the inspector up here, so you can make it a bit slower if you want. So if I put it to 50, it'll be a bit slower, so you can outrun, or not quite outrun it, but it won't be right next to you like it was before. I think 50 is actually decent. Probably not the best speed, but if you want it even slower, look, you put 60 and then you can actually outrun it. As you see, eventually it gives up. But yeah, it's a lot of tweaking depending on what sort of game you're making. But yeah, that'll be it for this tutorial. It's a bit of a short one because I'm a bit sick right now. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed.